Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Red Tool House. Today I'm in the kitchen and I am working on tomatoes. One of the things that intimidates me as a fairly newbie gardener, now I've been gardening for a little while, but it's just been trial things here and there, not really knowing what I was doing. So one of the things that imitates me or can imitate newbie gardeners is, what do you do once the harvest starts coming in? And if you don't, especially if you don't have time to take care of it right away. So one of the things I've learned with tomatoes is you can pop them in the freezer. Any tomatoes that you're not going to be eating as a slicing tomato on sandwiches or things that you want to eat, or tomatoes that you want to eat fresh, you can just simply pop them in the freezer. Now, last year when I did this, I didn't look up online what are the best methods for doing this. I just did it. So I just took my tomatoes straight from the garden as I was harvesting and simply popped them into a Ziploc bag. And if I was just getting 1 or 2 tomatoes a day, then I would add those to a Ziploc bag into the freezer, and each day continue to add to that gallon-sized bag. And then once that filled up, I'd just start a new bag. Since then, I have read online that the best way to handle your tomatoes is, if you're going to just freeze them, to process them later. Processing meaning to can them or use them later, maybe in soups or things like that, is to wash them first and core them to remove any type of stem that's in the center of the tomato, and then flash freeze them on a sheet pan, and then once they're frozen, put them in Ziploc bags. But I didn't do any of that. So I just wanted to show you that you don't even have to do that, really. Now maybe that is the best way, but even if you are strapped for time and you have a lot of tomatoes that you need to harvest, but you've got to run out the door to go to wherever you need to go to, and you're not going to have time within the next few days to handle those tomatoes, but you still want them to be used and not wasted, is simply take them, not washed, not stemmed or cored, and just pop them into a Ziploc bag straight into the freezer. And so I have taken these out of the freezer, and they've probably been out about a half an hour to 45 minutes. And I put them in a bowl of water just to start loosening the skin. Now, when I tested this before, all I did was run it under the tap water, and immediately the skin was able to just peel off. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and soak them in water for just a little bit so that it can not only loosen the skins, but also make them easier to handle so that I can remove this core. So they are not as frozen right now as coming straight from the freezer. And obviously you want to be very careful with your knife when you are removing the stem here, so that if the tomato is still fairly hard, you don't stab your hand. But it's just so simple. So they're kind of puffy now because the water has gotten under the skin as they've been soaking here. But the skin just pops off just like this, just as if you were to have blanched them. Cut off that top. Remove that stem. And I am just putting them into a stock pot because I'm going to boil these down into tomato sauce. So once again, you can just see how easy that is. So I just thought maybe that might be a time saver for you, and wanted to share this tip so that as your tomatoes are coming ripe, you can have an alternative to having to start the canner immediately. This will save them until the time when you are ready. So I've got all the tomatoes peeled, stems removed, and halved or cut smaller, and I'm going to add them to the stock pot to boil down for tomato sauce. But as you can see, that was a very quick process, and not that it's any quicker than taking them straight from the garden and processing them when they are fresh, but it will save tomatoes that you're not able to process when you need to, just because you don't have time. So like I said, just toss them in the freezer, process them when you can, and throughout the year, just add them, just take them out of the freezer, let them sit for maybe half hour, 15 minutes, stem them, peel them, and then just pop them in whole to soups or spaghetti sauce or anything that you would add your fresh tomatoes to. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.